More Stately Mansions, staged by the New York Theatre Workshop, was directed by Ivo van Hove in the fall of 1997 in New York City. Ivo, a distinguished Belgian director, is known for his controversial productions and innovative ideas on theatre.
That in theater there is only one thing that counts, that is to trust each other, and then you can go on forever. And that was why I also came back, because I felt that Tim and Jenny trusted me a lot. And that's a very good feeling when you make theater, otherwise you cannot. And that was of course what went wrong with Barbara. She didn't trust me for 1 second.
1, 2,
It's hot!
Cheers, Celtic.
We're
She's all
here in
world. This is Morocco.
It was just one of those times in life I felt challenged to rise to some other place inside. And for that I am eternally grateful.
Well, Jim Nicola heard about Ivo van Hove on his first trip to the Netherlands as part of a Netherlands-US theater exchange program. And he was very impressed by work that he saw on videotape. So that got us started. We knew we wanted to work with Ivo, and it was a question of deciding which show Ivo would direct with us. There were several choices. More Stately Mansions was one, Streetcar Named Desire, and Desire Under the Elms were all things that we were considering. They were projects that Ivo had directed with his own company, and we wanted to bring him here to direct an American company in the same, basically the same versions of those plays.
And I kept thinking about the idea of More Stately Mansions as a play that most people know about, but don't know. They just know it as a sort of Broadway disaster. And I thought if he could make his first appearance in the United States doing a play like that, and doing something interesting with it, would be really great. So we kind of landed on that one. The audition process mostly what I remember is him being quiet and sitting there, and actor after actor coming in and trying to engage with him on just the most basics. And he was very shy and reticent and wouldn't say a word.
So I had to kind of talk him into letting me do the scene. And then he just said, well, okay, you cannot do this scene with, with this. He was just saying you can't audition for this play in this way, in the usual way. So he just sort of shrugged his shoulders and said, okay. Anyway, so we will start rehearsal. So,
For about 2 weeks before I went in there and had looked and did not find anybody for this role. And so Ivo had to go back, and he just trusted Jim and Jerry to find people, and they sent him, I think, like 3 pictures to Ivo with recommendations about who should play this role. And Ivo went with their recommendation. So the first day of rehearsal I came in and I had never met him before, so I had no idea what it was going to be like.
Just was talking to some guys at the audition, I remember, saying, this guy's very strange, it's a very strange take he has, it's very deconstructed.
It was my first audition in New York. In the audition, Ivo, as far as I could tell, spent most of his time looking out the window. When I got into the elevator, the reader told me that they were trying to get Marissa Tomei.
Seems to have been a different cast of More Stately Mansions than the one that eventually went to Edinburgh.
Well, there was one member. We started out with another actress, but she and Ivo really couldn't find a common ground, I think.
We began with Barbara Sakova as Deborah, and they rehearsed for a solid week before I went in. By the time I got in, there was some tension that I sensed going on between Barbara and well, there's just some general tension in general. There was just some tension in the room. Barbara, I don't think, was sort of going with the style, with the acting style that was required. So there was some conflict, happening there. And we rehearsed for about a week and a half, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was even 2 weeks. And finally, she quit.
We were trying so hard. It's really painful, actually, to remember what we were doing, and I completely understand why Ivo was responding the way he was. He just put his head down and looked at his open palms and said, "It's supposed to be fun. We should be having fun by now."
She'd called it quits. I think she had done that once or twice before. This time she did it for good. And when that happened, they called a halt to the entire production. Ivo went back to Belgium.
And we had found a working method together after a few weeks, and I was so angry at the situation that when I came home from Brussels, from the plane, that I wrote a fax to 7 pages fax to Jim Nicola, explaining what happened and why I couldn't accept it, that this happened, and that I wanted to come back immediately if we found an actress who was willing to do it, because I really felt for Tim and Jenny, who had worked immensely hard the weeks before, and also we worked immensely hard in order to get to the core of what the play could be, and we were succeeding in that way. We were really having, it was really going in a good direction.
I guess in that entire time they'd been talking to Joan McIntosh to see if she could come in and do the production.
You've tried no as a possibility. You've experienced what no feels like. Why don't you see what yes feels like to the project? So I said, you know what, Jim? Yes. So he was very happy, he got off the phone, he called Ivo. Ivo flew in the next day, and we started rehearsals on Wednesday. And I was still terrified.
And that was why I also came back, because I felt that Tim and Jenny trusted me a lot. And that's a very good feeling when you make theater. Otherwise you cannot, and that was of course what went wrong with Barbara. She didn't trust me for 1 second, and then you cannot make theater.
But we resuscitated it with the help of wonderful Joan McIntosh.
I rehearsed it in 3 weeks, and actually Ivo was gone for one of those weeks. So I rehearsed with him for the first week, he left for the next week, and we had one other week with him.
She had heard the most awful things about me. She was really afraid of me and really thinking, oh no, I don't want to work with this man. And then we talked to each other on the phone, she said, and then she thought, well, this sounds to be an okay guy. So the rumors about me must have been enormous.
Well, we were invited by the Edinburgh Festival to come and be part of the festival. Now, Edinburgh did not allow for any rehearsal time, and we were away from the show from, when did we play? We played in September, October originally. So when we closed the show, it was 8 months, 8 months hence, and the show needed to be rehearsed. It also was going to be staged on Ivo's original set, because we didn't keep the set from our production here in America, and the configuration of the theater is also different. So Ivo had a set from his original production, and his company actually remounted the physical side of it, and we brought the actors and the stage management.
We're going, and you better be good. You better be very good.
Here I am. I'm optimistic and I'm fresh-faced, and I can't wait to show Europe what I'm made of! I just couldn't get this thing, and I stayed up all New York.
No, I thought I knew New York pretty well in the United States, because on television we see, over here of course, every day American culture. I visited New York for quite a few times before I went to work there. But then when I went to work there, and I was not alone in this feeling, also Jan and Bart, the dramaturg, felt the same, that we felt really displaced over there. And it was a feeling that I really didn't know of from myself, because I travel all the time everywhere. So there was an enormous uneasiness of being there, and then to work also, I felt, for me the experience was that I was in the middle of a cultural gap. How do you call that? A cultural shock or something like that.
If Ivo suffered culture shock in New York, remounting his production of More Stately Mansions, the American company was about to experience a culture shock of their own, arriving in Antwerp and adjusting to the European concepts of time and pace.
It's pretty exciting because the van has actually come and we're sitting in it now. How long did we wait? We waited about half an hour. Antwerp is actually Ivo's hometown. He has a relationship with De Single where we performed, and we needed to rehearse and we needed to remount the show and perform it in front of an audience again to be ready for the festival. And De Single seemed like the ideal situation because it is a kind of home for Ivo.
The More Stately Mansions company started the process of remounting the show in the theater in Antwerp that Ivo frequently used, the De Single.
It means the only one. By itself.
As opposed to
just one, De Single.
No, I don't. I like certain things about the space in Antwerp. I like this. I do like the size, but just sort of the decor of the theater is very sort of 60s and a little like a school, I don't know, school auditorium or something like that. It was just kind of, didn't feel much like a theater to me.
This is made of rubber tires, old used tires, steel belted radials, etc. So there's bits of metal wire that stick out. So it's very sharp, very dangerous area to walk through. And in fact, we're not allowed in there.
I wrote, in the past I wrote some critics too, but now at the moment I'm only in journalism for doing interviews, for writing, announcing articles, but not really critical articles.
Ivo van Hoof. As Ivo van Hoof, he's known in the States, of course, because he has worked on Rijkemanshuis, I think. Ivo was working in Antwerp, but finally he left Belgium and he worked now in Holland. But the actors with whom he's working are always Belgian actors. So what Ivo does for the theater is very important because the way of his direction is very strange. It is a complete other manner to get close to the theater piece. I think the productions that Ivo van Hoof makes it's a very expensive way of working. The scenography is always something very special, but it is always too for big stages.
Perhaps, I don't know for sure, the interpretation I had, not towards the characters and so on, but also that there was a humoristic side in O'Neill and these kind of things, and that you could play O'Neill without a table, without entering a door and so on. So it were these basic kind of things which were annoying both sides, as a matter of fact, in the first weeks, and of course also that the way that I do character building is different from a purely psychological way. Because I hate actors who are only emotional and who don't have craftsmanship. So I like actors who have a perfect mixture of the two of them. Craftsmanship, who are craftsmen, but who are capable of showing a lot of emotions. And so in the end, the result was really the same.
We went for a drink at the Bowery Bar, and Ivo said the first thing that was clear to me, which was, we have the yes, the no, and the yes, and you do this very well. You have the yes, you do the yes 100%, you do the no 100%, you do the yes 100%, and it's very good, it's very good. But always underneath it you have this psychological through line, and this is what I do not want. I don't want this psychological through line that sort of explains the transitions.
Not at all. I mean, I'd heard their names, and I read the huge introduction that they, sort of a packet introduction to how he had produced it the first time. So I got just a general idea that this might not be your basic O'Neill.
This was the first opening on October 6th. And right before, I had made cards and had presents for everybody for the opening. I was very excited, and there was a door behind the set, just behind the set, and then there were the tracks where the things rolled in and out, and then in front of that was the stage. And I was forbidden to walk through that door by the stage manager because it was so treacherous. Because I had fallen once before, frankly, on my bum and hurt myself. And because of the shoes I wear in the play, I was forbidden to walk on any of the backstage things in the shoes. And I stepped out the door and tripped on the track and fell kaboom onto the track and twisted my left ankle and my right ankle and my left knee badly. So badly that I thought I had broken a bone in my right foot. And we didn't know if we were going to go on. I didn't know if I could do it. Again, I'm kind of embarrassed to even say this because, again, I don't know what it was like from the outside, but from the inside, I knew I could do no wrong. I knew that it was something about the heightened awareness I had because, frankly, I thought I had broken my foot, but I was still performing. It was the most incredible performance I'd ever done in my life. After it was over, I felt that I could leave acting altogether because I had done the greatest work of my life, and that was it.
My name is Bart van den Einde.
Bart, and can you tell us what your position is with the theater?
I'm a dramaturg. I work with the Zuidelijk Toneel as a dramaturg. That is, I work with cast directors and I do all the dramaturgies of Ivo's work. Well, as a dramaturg in the beginning, it's a little bit searching how you can still have something to say about the play, to add something new to what's already said before. In the Dutch version, they were more like Frankenstein-made people in the sense that they created themselves like these big monsters on little stages. I mean, they were more than larger than life. And changed very strongly in the new production. We had to try to find a new parcours. Do you say that in English? No, you don't say that. A way of traveling through the scenes.
Oh, the through lines.
Yeah. So we have worked on that a lot.
Okay. How was it?
Okay, Tim. It was. You got to look mad. It's go away! Go away!
He very strongly believes that in these explosions, in explosive contact between people, you can see a lot of. You can see that they love each other as well.
All deep in ourselves, in the essence, we are all schizophrenics, I think, but not in a sick way, but in a good way, I think. And that was very hard for me to explain that to the actors, that you could look at the character from different sides, and that you should place a character within each moment and look at it autonomous from the next moment. And also that when you play, you don't know what the end of the play will be, so you have to be within the moment. And I think that was the main search we have to do together, to find a common language in order to talk about it this way.
Realistic acting, in the way we're doing it in America, is not so realistic. That actually this sort of acting, which we do in Ivo's production, which friends of mine in New York would say was stylized, seems to me much more real. It's stripping away a lot of the frills of our acting style in America and trying to get as naked as possible, as elemental as possible.
And I remember very well Tim Hopper, he got it, he was the first to understand that pretty well, and then he really felt like a fish in the water.
My strings were being pulled to work out a performance that had already been worked out, and I was just kind of, so I think I felt a bit insecure with that, or a bit...
I mean, that has a lot to do with Ivo's evolution, and it has also to do with the actors. For instance, I mean, I think less for Jenny and Tim, but especially for Joan, who is an elder person as well, who is an elder woman who has lived and had children and has all these experiences. I mean, for her, it was a much more natural thing, I think, the Deborah character than it was for Kathleen when she played. She was very young then. She was 32. She had no children. So she was like this huge creation, because Deborah is also this creation. I mean, she recreates herself every time as a mother, as a lover, as a grandmother. She always makes these creations. So it's right for the role, but Joan had another accent in the sense that she showed very strongly the pain and the suffering and the inability to have contact with people who are your blood and flesh and who you love, maybe not in the right way. But I mean, this friction between loving and hating your children, for instance. I mean, I don't think Kathleen at that moment, maybe she knew or she realized, but really feeling this, I think maybe for that you have to have had a child yourself.
Van Hove does not make the task easy for his cast, having them rattle out long speeches at breakneck speed, change tone mid-sentence, and fling themselves around naked.
But then my agent said, well, there's some nudity in the show. And I said, nudity? And of course, as I think everybody knows by now, I really had no public or private experience of nudity prior to More Stately Mansions.
All I knew was there was going to be some nudity. It would be very stylized. And that's all I knew.
How did you rehearse that scene? I mean, how did it develop?
Well, Ivo basically told us that there should be 3 parts to it. He said, you know, the first part should be you climbing on each other. Then the second part would be sort of, you know, and we said slam dance. He said, okay, yes, slam dance. And then he said, and then you should be rolling on the floor on top of each other. And it was like, go. And so we started with this music from Nirvana, a song called Rape Me, to sort of, he said, that's what it needs. That's more the feeling of it.
And it made me sick to the pit of my stomach. So I called Ifo in Belgium just to tell him that I'm horribly inhibited, and that my greatest concern was that I would betray the character, because the character's greatest, she believes her greatest strength lies in her sexuality, in her body itself. She is, you know, that kind of a person, and I'm acting when I'm pretending to be Sarah, and I was really, really worried. And Ifo said to me, it's not pornographic, it's a battle. And I thought, oh man. So I said, yeah. And then of course I found out in rehearsal what the nudity actually was. And I spent a lot of time in tears.
And from there, and then particularly with me climbing on Jenny, we had to be a little bit more, you know, by the numbers. And so like, okay, well, I'm gonna put my hand here and put my hand here and this kind of stuff. Just not from a you know, sexual perspective, like I don't want to put my hand on it. It was just more from the perspective of I'm 170 pounds and she's 115, 120.
The part when we actually start the ballet was actually much easier than the part when the scene is happening, because I was in physical danger and Tim was in physical danger, so there was no watching from above, or it became that Merce Cunningham thing. It was like, I cannot drop Tim.
You can see that they love each other as well. I mean, because people who don't have feelings for each other are indifferent, and then you don't have friction. But when they're in this, I mean, he's always showing in the pain and in that you can be happy in unhappiness.
Me, being in love is trying to reach for the maximum and forgetting all about outer life and about reality. That's what Romeo and Juliet is about. But loving each other is for me leading a bearable life together with somebody you laugh. And, well, I think for me the result of More Stately Mansions was an improvement of the production we did a few years ago in different ways. And also the actors, they were capable of doing really the same things as my actors can do. So the result was the same at the end. All the American actors were really capable of making this physical appearance and playing this with at 200%, with 200% energy, not just 85%, because that's impossible for the play. And they did it with a lot of emotional feeling, but with also craftsmanship.
Here at the Single Theatre in Antwerp is a big street, and it's now 7:35. We're all exhausted, and we have some notes. Go to dinner, maybe. That's right.
We've made it.
We've arrived!
Thank you.
This restaurant is really just a fancy Antwerp Denny's.
It wasn't easy, but here we are.
Get ready, Belgium. Loud Americans coming in your restaurant.
Hans says that what are we? We are infested. We are infested with pharmacies here in Belgium, in Antwerp.
As Ben and Robert are gone, and
That's not right.
And you're the audience.
You and Tim are here.
That's right.
That's it.
Curtain.
And you say curtain.
Curtain. And then you go, boop. And Tim goes, boop.
I
And
come
John
on,
goes, boop.
I go here, Ben comes on, he trips a little, and then he comes over here.
Jenny's got some voice. I don't know how out we're going to be tonight. I'm sort of determined. I think she wants to try to talk it through.
Just like
But I'll stay. I'll be on book, and we'll see if she wants me to pick it up.
Yeah.
Linda will be on book, moving about in front of the stage, pretending she's Jenny Bacon.
Am I gonna speak the lines?
Let me go talk to Jenny.
See what she wants to do.
Yeah.
This is like an ever-evolving.
Miracle Drops of Antwerp. It's been really great. You know, we're treated like kings and queens.
But I demand, of course, the maximum of what an actor or an actress is capable of, and I think the director should do that.
We had a very difficult rehearsal, lots of yelling, lots of Eva wanting to yell over Joan. So she did. She pushed to the extent of her ability, and woke up the next morning with no voice. Panicked, upset, angry at herself, upset that she couldn't do it, that she somehow failed herself in the company. Anyway, so the voice was gone. The voice, as far as we know, is mostly gone. But she has been on vocal rest all yesterday, all today, pouring herbal teas and magical essences from the acupuncturist. Drops.
A little picture of a little guy. Oh.
You found.
But what's really neat is you to do all of this in different languages. You figure it out by comparing the French and the
And pharmacologically, I have eye makeup remover here, and makeup remover and stiff gel.
Drops from the acupuncturist, things from the pharmacy, lozenges, got her hot pot, got the steamer going, it's been steaming in the bathroom, eucalyptus. So that's kind of where we're at tonight. We're going to do a run through, just a rehearsal. Eva won't be there.
So here's Jenny Bacon, and it's our like dress rehearsal thing.
Cancel dress rehearsal because I've lost my voice.
I found Antwerp to be terrifying, if only because I knew that 90% of the audience had probably already seen the show in the hands of his company.
More comfortable. There was an overall sort of greater level of comfort in Antwerp because I felt like that audience had been exposed to this kind of thing before. And for many people, I don't know how many, had actually seen the production in Dutch before, so they were totally aware of what was going to be taking place. And those who hadn't seen it, well, they were sort of aware of this, they were aware of a different style of theater than we are in America.
Certainly I don't miss any production of Ivo van Hove, for example. I like his work very much.
10 minutes before starting.
We're waiting for Jones here to finish up, and then we're going to go.
And essentially, we're just going to go up and try to run through the show. And Jenny's going to talk through her part, and we'll see how it happens.
Ladies and gentlemen, please come to the stage. We will spend a few minutes here before we start the play. So please come to the stage.
There we go.
Once my own sort of self-indulgent fears were overcome, the houses in Antwerp were exquisite. The depth of the listening, and you would realize that they weren't necessarily reading the super titles all the time, because they would laugh with us.
The performance was going on in Antwerp,
So this is the first time with More Stately Mansions?
This is the first time,
Okay,
and
good.
I appreciate it very much.
Okay.
The American company opened in Antwerp to its first international audience. The cast was unsure how they would be received, as some of the audience did not know English.
The theater was very interested in seeing the American company of this thing. They had seen the original production with Ivo's company.
Members of Ivo's theater company, Het Zuidelijk Toneel, also attended the opening night. The company had originated the roles in More Stately Mansions 3 years earlier in an acclaimed Dutch-language production, and they mingled with the American cast backstage after the show. Ivo's company would be performing at the Edinburgh Festival along with More Stately Mansions in a production of Caligula, also directed by Ivo.
Was it strange to see the show with your part?
It was very strange. Very weird. You recognize things and you forgot things, and it was. I was very puzzled.
Puzzled?
Puzzled.
Sarah.
And Sarah. Could you talk to us a little bit about the differences that Ivo had between the two performances, two productions?
That's so strange to see, because
If you have it in the afternoon, let us know.
at first you see all the things that you know, and then you see the new things and you think, oh, it's a mistake they make. And it's weird. It's for 70% looking in a mirror. You think, oh my god, even the same movements, the same timing, the same kisses at the same place. It's like looking at yourself now and then. Sometimes you think, hey, that's mine. And sometimes you think, it's a mistake. You forget the socks. But that's something they changed.
Perhaps because of the recognition on the one side, and well, I don't know. It's all thoughts. You hear texts from your own.
Yes.
You see the same things, other things. When things are changed, you recognize immediately. Oh, that's otherwise.
Was the blocking similar?
The what?
Blocking. Movement?
Now and then.
Now and then, similar,
Well,
now and then not so.
But I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well,
my respect for them, they were exalted into sort of godlike status for having created this with Ivo, that Ivo, they had given Ivo the tools and the vessel and the flexibility to have this vision of More Stately Mansions and to achieve it. And then he can bring it to us and teach it to us because he understood them so well. And oh, it was terrifying. And plus I had blown out my voice in that work-through.
it is a marvel. I enjoy that aspect much more than when I did it myself. It's so, from O'Neill, it's incredible.
It's been a long, exciting night.
Did it go like how you planned though? I mean, in terms of response and how concentrated they were?
I was actually surprised. Ivo had said that the Flemish audience would not respond very much, that they would be quiet and introspective. But I found these people to respond to quite a bit.
Okay.
When it goes great, it's great. When it goes shitty, it's shit.
So that's kind of where we're at with the Jenny thing, and we really hope that her voice comes back in full strength because, as you know, we have 6 shows next week. And so we'll see how it goes. We do have 4 days off before we, when we finish here, we have 4 days before we do a show in Edinburgh. So.
The famous welcome package of the Edinburgh International Festival. Welcome to Edinburgh.
The More Stately Mansions company arrived in Edinburgh at the same time as the last week of the Fringe Festival. The city of Edinburgh doubles in size during the Edinburgh International Festival, an increase of 500,000 people. Lines of ticket buyers start early in the morning for the main stage events. More Stately Mansions was imported from its run in Antwerp and restaged at the Royal Lyceum Theatre for 6 performances to close out the festival. The cast and crew had 3 days to recover from the run in Antwerp in order to get ready for the 6 performances that were scheduled for Edinburgh. There was still a question as to the capacity of Jenny's voice after the strain of the Antwerp run. Would 3 days be enough time for her to recover? Backstage at the Royal Lyceum, an unusual mix of people prepared the stage for the run of More Stately Mansions. Working together were the Dutch stage crew from Ivo's Theatre, Het Zuidelijk Toneel, the Scottish stagehands from the Royal Lyceum, and the American stage manager Martha Donaldson, coordinating the set-in.
Hey Mike, could you stick your cans on?
Working with the Dutch crew was a revelation. The respect with which they carried themselves and which they gave to the other people. Maybe that comes from having been government subsidized. There's an inherent awareness that you are worth something, that you are giving something to the community that is worthwhile and that the community wants.
Down by my waist, that's all.
So the girls are in here.
Hi.
Very nice. Warm-up area. Show for them.
Fixed it up very nicely. It's very intimate on the set. The audience feels very close.
And then coming to Edinburgh, which is this, which is the classical idea of a theatre, or it's the, it's just what we're used to, more of a theatre. And in fact, more from visits to London than from what's actually in America. There's no theaters really like that in America that I've seen. I mean, the Broadway houses. To play up to the balconies and stuff like that. Because that has its own sort of size too. You get that same sort of sense of height and size that you have in Antwerp, but it's a lot more. There's people up there as opposed to just space.
I sense more in Scotland than I did in Antwerp. The discomfort with the transparency with which Ivo envisioned the male and the female roles, and the overt sexuality of his vision of More Stately Mansions.
There's more of a rake to the floor than there was.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what it's going to be like in my shoes.
Well, that's not a very flat.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please take your seats as this evening's performance will begin in 1 minute. 1 minute, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah. Did your friend get in?
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
Just arrived.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Places, please. The top of the show. Places at this time, please. Have a good show. Thank you, Places.
Post-show.
How do you feel?
Exhausted. Absolutely. My muscles are like, oh, I'm exhausted. This woman originated the role.
We like her very much.
Oh, she did my role.
It was very
Speak. Yeah, me too. Oh, I'm really glad you saw it.
Oh, yes, well, it's not easy.
Oh, yes. Oh. I heard you laugh at one point. I was so happy. Too late, Deborah. I heard you laugh.
They were raucous.
I mean, from the very first
Because with the English going so fast, you would think that it would be hard to follow, but
immediately.
it's because they're a theater audience over here.
I think they said theater.
They're so educated in theater. They love theater so much.
And they have good ears. They're used to people talking fast.
Scary.
The two of you searching for a sentence or a moment, and then suddenly she breaks down. And you should go away!
Because we changed all the
Because we're in another country. We're in another
We haven't changed time to time. Yes.
So the guy was riding it.
The cast and crews from More Stately Mansions and Caligula joined together for an opening night meal. Also present was Jim Nicola, artistic director of the New York Theatre Workshop.
I'm going to do a little toast here. I'm not very good at this.
Oh,
yes, you are, Jim. But I did start thinking earlier today what I wanted to say tonight to you. And I don't know, for some reason, the first thing that came into my head was when I was a little kid in suburban Hartford, I would never have imagined myself here this evening. And it's one of the happiest and proudest moments of my life. I'm very happy to be part of all of this incredible transatlantic eternally grateful to be a part of it. Cheers.
We've had really, really good notices in both the Scotsman and in the Times of London.
Mark, and what is your last name, Mark, again?
Van Egen.
And you're a member of Evo's company, is that
Yes.
correct? Tell us a little bit what it was like for you to see the American cast do More Stately Mansions a couple nights ago.
It was another language, but I know the performance in Dutch and I know the story, so for me it wasn't difficult to follow the story. But it's because of the language in Holland, the Dutch language is much more fast and down, and you have a beautiful language. So
A bit in the acting, it was a little more, how should you say, the American, a little more naturalistic, I think. Physically, a little more free.
Very nice, because in Bruges, at the how do you call it, the sex ballet, the naked ballet, the music didn't work, so it was just in the air, and which was nice, but are they calling Evo?
Joel Harford and Joel Harford.
Except in Dutch, it's, how do you say it?
You said Joel Harford.
You are the first line in Dutch.
Oh shit.
What was it?
U vindt haar daar binnen.
And you? How do you
Like
say
her
it?
hiding in there. There it is. Two nations joining together.
The stress of opening the show in Edinburgh after the run in Antwerp took its toll on Jenny's voice. After opening on a Monday and running for a total of 3 performances, the Thursday night show was cancelled.
All right, it's Thursday night. More Stately Mansions has been canceled. Jenny has had some vocal problems, and so she's resting tonight. Some of the other cast members are going to join us at about 10:15, and we're going to watch fireworks again.
You see much more the human side of these people, so the face behind the masquerade, behind the creations they are. And that's throughout all the play, but it's very clear in the end, where in the Dutch version you had like the final explosion of these three giants, and in the American version, I mean, it's like three. In the booklet we said three solitary stars, but three very little persons who disintegrate.
Yeah, Jen thinks she can do one or the other. She feels if she does it tonight, it'll blow her out.
Yeah.
The chords will be blown. So, in the festival, we prefer we do tomorrow night.
The Edinburgh Festival administration preferred Jenny to save her voice for the last scheduled performance, so another show was cancelled to ensure the last date.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Martha. I'm the stage manager for More Stately Mansions. I've just come out to give you an announcement. As many of you know, we've had to cancel our last two performances due to the voice loss of Jenny Bacon, who plays Sarah Harford. And although her voice is still not at 100%, she very much wants to play tonight, as does the entire company. So she'll be making some vocal adjustments in order to get through tonight's performance, but we expect it to be a great show. So thanks for your understanding, and we hope that you enjoy this evening's final festival performance of More Stately Mansions.
Very well. I wouldn't, if you didn't know that Jenny was having problems, I don't think you'd have any notion of it at all. Her performance is very well paced. I actually think Tim is having a kind of an interesting breakthrough evening. He seems to be doing new and relaxed, wonderful things throughout, and I think it's going splendidly.
So also with the cancellations now in Edinburgh, of course that's horrible, but for me it is not it's not something that I will remember. I will remember the fact that I heard that the last performance was perhaps the best we ever played, and I will remember the other performances that I saw. The opening night, which I liked a lot, the way the actors played. So, and that's because the trust is there.
To the commitment and talent of the three principals as mother, son and daughter-in-law, Deborah Simon and Sarah Harford. Joan McIntosh, Tim Hopper and Jenny Bacon are quite amazing in a way that only American actors seem to be capable of achieving, and if they'd like to receive an angel each for their performances in More Stately Mansions.
Pretty delighted to be part of something that for some people has been a life-changing experience. It has been for me too, I guess.
By having done that experience, something in me, something karmically was healed and released.
Everyone lean to the left.
I was surprised by the reviews and by the awards that they ended up giving to us, because I didn't sense from the audience the same level of that they were getting as much as the ones in Antwerp, the audiences in Antwerp.
It worked out. I mean, audiences loved it as well, although it's a very difficult show. And I mean, that gave him the possibility or the freedom to explore other ways of showing the conflict in people and the conflict with an outside world, and that he used in his new version of More Stately Mansions.
Can you talk about how it was that both your shows, Caligula and More Stately Mansions, got picked to go to the Edinburgh Festival?
Because they are good.